What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and the finale for She-Hulk has just dropped, and it was quite different than a lot of people, including myself, thought that it would actually be. But it did set up a lot for the future of the MCU, specifically the Hulk. Now, we know a Hulk movie is confirmed to be coming on the way, so this not only confirmed it in the series as well, but gives us a little bit of an insight of what we could actually see. Now, right away, let me know what you thought about She-Hulk's finale and the series as a whole in the comments down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Today, we'll be going over the ending and talking about what it sets up, and through the week, we'll be talking about She-Hulk and other things that the series set up, including if we are going to be seeing Jennifer Walters again. Now, just like She-Hulk in the comics, She-Hulk in the series is a character that breaks the fourth wall. And that actually ended up being a pretty big plot point for this finale. Now, the last episode, episode 8, left off with Intelligentsia kind of exposing Jennifer Walters. This caused her to get angry, and she kind of went into She-Hulk rage mode. And this caused the DODC to come, and unfortunately, as this episode begins, we find out that repercussions came from She-Hulk hulking out. Also, I should add spoiler alert for the season finale of She-Hulk. We're about to dive into them, so you've been warned. Now, there were obviously some really big things at the end of this finale. Then they were kind of rewritten, and then some more really big things happened, and then some more big things happened again with Hulk appearing with his son, Scar, just like we thought he would. And they actually did confirm that Hulk is getting a solo movie. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Now, sadly, Jen wakes up in a prison. Her co-workers are there and they tell her that basically she has to take a plea deal to where she can't turn into She-Hulk again. She loses her job, she has to move back home, and then eventually goes to Emil's retreat. Nikki, using a bro account, gets an invite to an I Hate She-Hulk party, and she gets the help of Pug to be her bro. There they find out that Todd is indeed the villain and the founder of Intelligentsia. Abomination was missing from the resort and Jen tries to track him down, and as it turns out, he's been taking public speaking deals as the Abomination. However, it is important to note that he did not take this deal because he hates Jennifer Walters or She-Hulk. He did it simply for the money. Now from here, a pretty predictable finale starts to happen, or so they would have you think. Todd, aka Hulk King, reveals that he hired Josh not only to get a sex tape of She-Hulk, but to also get her blood. So what does he do? Of course, he injects himself with her blood, turning into a Hulk himself. Jennifer breaks the fourth wall several times during the scene where she says, "This isn't actually happening, right? This isn't how the finale is going down." Titania also shows up, busting through the wall again. Todd goes to attack Jennifer, but Abomination picks her up because, like I said, it wasn't because he hated She-Hulk that he was speaking, it was simply a gig for money. He actually does care about her as a friend, so he does try to protect her. However, right as he's protecting her, Bruce Banner busts in from the ceiling, sees that Abomination is holding Jennifer and says, "Get away from my cousin," and the two of them start to fight. This is where Jen yet again breaks the fourth wall and says that this is all too messy and these stories don't make any sense. She then breaks the fourth wall again, looking directly at us and asks, "Is this working for you?" And from here, they try to make it seem like you accidentally went back to the Marvel Disney Plus home screen, which is very clever. For a second, I kind of did think that I exited out of the She-Hulk series for some reason, but then of course I realized what was happening. We can hear Jennifer say, "This menu isn't going to stop me," and she says, "Just gonna break this inhibitor real quick," talking about the inhibitor that was put on her ankle to prevent her from turning into She-Hulk. She breaks it off, and then we see She-Hulk bust through the thumbnail for the She-Hulk series. She sees Marvel Studios assembled, and she goes through that, and where does she end up? In the real world at Marvel Studios. When she first gets there, we can hear two people talking in the background. One says, "So tell me about the Infinity Gauntlet. It's amazing." The other man says, "So back when we were working on the first Thor movie, they had come to me and asked me to make a gauntlet." And this is kind of making fun of Marvel Studios because that's kind of what She-Hulk does. It's a very self-aware show, it breaks the fourth wall, and this is specifically talking about in the first Thor movie. In Odin's vault, we actually saw an Infinity Gauntlet. However, in Thor Ragnarok, Hela would go on to reveal that it was fake. Now, eventually, She-Hulk makes her way to a door that says She-Hulk Production. So she goes in and basically sees the round table of everybody that was working on the show. And again, they start to address things that people say in the real world. She-Hulk says this is stupid, but the writers are saying that there are certain things that are supposed to happen in a superhero story. She-Hulk says, why don't we do things a different way? And the writers say this is the story that Kevin wants. And they are referring to Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios. She-Hulk says, okay, then I want to talk to Kevin. There's a brief pause and then everybody starts to laugh. Obviously, this is a big joke about Kevin Feige being the big dog at Marvel Studios. Of course, he is the president. They start to say, nobody talks to Kevin. And they even start defending him, saying, I'll kill you before you get to Kevin. However, she just kind of goes to his office. And what's really interesting is that this is really Kevin Feige's office. This is what it looks like, Iron Man in the back and all. They make a joke that she has to sign an NDA before she goes in to see him, which everybody has to do. It's called a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, it says that if you reveal anything that is talked about or anything that you see at Marvel Studios, you will get sued. However, they call security on her, but she's She-Hulk, so she goes right through them. Eventually, she makes it to Kevin's office, and we're all expecting to see Kevin Feige. However, the Kevin that we see is very different. It's actually an AI robot called Kevin, which is an acronym for Knowledge Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus, in which, in all honesty, is still basically describing Kevin Feige. Now, there's some jokes here where they ask her to change back into Jennifer Walters. She asks why. They say because it's expensive to have CGI She-Hulk. But Kevin also says, however, don't turn back into Jennifer Walters on screen. Wait till they cut away so the CGI doesn't have to show her transforming back to Jennifer. Therefore, they could save money. Now from here it gets super meta. The show was already pretty meta, but here it really gets into it. Jennifer says that the ending for the finale sucks and it should be changed. And she makes her closing argument to Kevin of why it should actually change. And she says it's often said that Marvel movies all end the same way. This is obviously coming from the real world, from critics and simply fans and haters that have said many times before that Marvel movies end the same way. Jennifer says perhaps it's a result of following some unwritten rule that you have to throw a bunch of plot and flash and a whole blood thing that seems super suspiciously close to super soldier serum at the audience in the climax, and then she says, I propose we don't have to do that. And from here, Jen essentially rewrites the finale. Todd doesn't turn into a Hulk, nothing essentially happens with Titania, Bruce Banner doesn't appear to save the day, and here is where we get our big confirmation for the Hulk movie. Jen says he doesn't have to return, but Kevin says, well, he was supposed to return to explain what he was doing on Sakaar. However, Jen interrupts and says, we don't need to hear all that. Then Kevin says, but we were going to introduce, and then Jen interrupts again and says, save it for the movie. Confirming to us that the Hulk is getting a movie, and we are going to find out what he did on Sakaar. And of course, we were introduced to his son, Scar. More on him in just a bit. She says Abomination should be held accountable for his actions, and she wouldn't mind seeing Daredevil again. Then Jen sits down and starts poking fun at some characters for having daddy issues. However, she does ask Kevin, when are we getting the X-Men? Then she looks at the camera, gives us a thumbs up, and sticks her tongue out. And this is great because this is obviously Marvel telling us, hey, we know you want to know about the X-Men. I will say they added a pretty clever joke where Jen says, that's what Hulks do. We smash things. Bruce smashes buildings. I smash fourth walls and bad endings. And sometimes Matt Murdock. Kevin also makes a joke that we'll see her on the big screen, implying that she's going to get her own movie. She asks, really? And he says, no. So when they were talking about save it for the movie, that was indeed about Hulk and not She-Hulk. Now from here, things just kind of wrap up. Todd is put in handcuffs. He's taken away. Jen says, I'll see you in court. Titania seems to be kind of friendly towards Jen now. Daredevil shows up, not to save the day because he's a little too late, but because Jen wanted him back, and let's face it, we all did. And Emil goes back to prison for 10 years. That is until the post-credit scene. Now, the last scene is of Jen at her family's house with Matt Murdock there as well, and her family is grilling him for being a lover of Jen. They ask him how much money he makes, and he says he works in Hell's Kitchen, does a lot of pro bono work, and is heading back there in a week. And then, of course, Bruce Banner / Professor Hulk comes in. He says, I know I've been away on Sakaar for a while. I'll tell you all about it. But first, I have someone here that I'd like you all to meet. This is my son, Scar. And we called it. From the very first episode, we were talking about how Scar is most likely going to appear in either the Hulk movie or in She-Hulk. We figured that when a Sakaarian ship was trying to get a hold of Hulk, not actually attack him, but get a hold of him to deliver a message, that it was friendly and most likely about his son. In the comics, Hulk goes to Sakaar. Well, I should say that he is tricked by the Illuminati to go into space and then ends up on Sakaar, where he ends up becoming Gladiator Hulk, which we did see in Thor Ragnarok. on Sakaar, but what we didn't see in Ragnarok that does happen in the comics is that he ends up ruling Sakaar. He ends up marrying Kyera, and she gets pregnant with his son. However, unfortunately, the ship that the Illuminati sent him there blows up and ends up killing Kyera and his unborn son, or so he thought. Hulk, in his full rage in the World War Hulk storyline, returns to Earth to seek vengeance on those that sent him there. The Illuminati, the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. However, unbeknownst to him, thanks to some powers from his mother, Scar actually lived. And here's where things get kind of interesting because they can't go the exact story from the comics in the MCU because things aren't exactly set up the right way. For starters, we don't have the Illuminati, we don't have the X-Men or the Fantastic Four in the MCU yet, and we also don't really have the Avengers right now. And two, something that could be a plot point, but most likely won't be at this point in time, is that Scar actually tries to kill Hulk when he's first introduced in the comics. Now, eventually, Scar finds out that the Hulk isn't the same Hulk, so therefore he doesn't want to kill him anymore, and that could happen here in the Hulk film. Now, for those who are not aware, it has been reported that a solo Hulk film is in the works, and it is going to be based off of the World War Hulk storyline. Now, like I mentioned and just described, this takes place on Sakaar, and what's important to know here is that Bruce Banner and Professor Hulk were not the same as the Hulk that we got in Ragnarok. In fact, when Bruce Banner finally transformed into himself from the Hulk, he didn't realize what was happening, and he thought that they were still during the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. He asked about Sokovia, about Nat, about the Avengers, and Thor had to explain to him that it was years ago and that he's been the Hulk for 2 years. So here's what happened. The Hulk had a baby, not Bruce Banner, the Hulk, but Bruce is now dealing with the aftermath of that. And the aftermath of that is his son, Scar, who is going to play a key role in the Hulk solo film, which I'm assuming is going to come sometime in Phase 6, unless they are planning to do it after Secret Wars, which I would be shocked in, then it will come in Phase 7. Now, for the post-credit scene, it's pretty simple. Wong comes and gets Emil out of prison. Since Emil Blonsky / the Abomination helped Wong during his challenge to become Sorcerer Supreme, Wong offered Emil sanctuary at the Sanctum. So this is him holding true to his original deal for Emil. Now, Emil does make a joke that Wong is kind of late and took his time, probably because he was in another TV show. So I would expect to see Wong in another Disney Plus series from Marvel pretty soon. And that's it for the ending explained and the post-credit scene explained for She-Hulk Episode 9, the finale. And of course, like I said, we'll be breaking down the finale even more later on this week. But again, let me know what you thought about the finale and the series as a whole in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all things relating to the MCU. You can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram for live updates. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.